breakfast.
Good morning, and welcome to Comics for Breakfast. I'm your host, Jason Mink. Thank you for joining us. It's been a while, hasn't it? I hope you've all had a fantastic summer. You'll notice some changes to the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics for Breakfast set. The old one fell apart. I'd like to thank Rob for helping us put this new one together. It's nice and sturdy, and it should last us for many seasons to come. Cheers, Rob. What we're talking today, alternate realities. These days, they're simply part of the modern landscape of comic storytelling, but that wasn't always the case. What's that? Okay, sure, DC have been doing it for a while with Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane is an example. I guess when they booted all of their Golden Age characters down the road to Earth 2, they did it again. DC have always understood the value of keeping all of their cards on the table. More interesting were the alternate realities that were created inadvertently as DC added more titles over the years. Where exactly all of these pieces fit together became a bit problematic. We were frequently shown stories taking place in the future, a future which might vary from title to title, if not issue to issue. In an attempt to declutter their universe, in 1985, DC began a semi-annual series of crises designed to streamline, revise, or entirely remove contradictory events from their official timeline. And while these crises are often chock full of fan-favorite characters and concepts, they usually serve as expendable window dressing in the goal of establishing more modern and credible universes, often to the detriment of the concept of escapism itself. Marvel's take on alternate realities was a little more focused, at least at first. We didn't see too many divergent realities from the company until the advent of What If number 1 from June of 1977. Our past is a tapestry we carry with us through a lifetime, embroidered over the years by both experience and memory. It's tempting, as we move through life, to embellish this tapestry, to project bolder colors and brighter views than perhaps were initially present. And while my childhood was far from perfect, I was also lucky to be alive at a time when comics were still a vital piece of the cultural experience. In the days before cable TV, cell phones, or video games, a love of and at least conversational knowledge of comic books could not only alleviate boredom, but was vital social currency. To some it may seem as though I'm exaggerating, and I get that. It does seem to be an idealized realm. Many in our group grew up with no one to share their love of the medium with. Worse yet, they were seen as social pariahs for their choice of entertainment. But I was fortunate enough to hang out with a group of kids who not only read comic books, but were obsessed with them. While others came and went, it was the Betts brothers who were my primary comic cohorts. I don't have a photo, so instead I'll use the next best representation. There was the oldest, Alan, who didn't hang out with us often, but was seen as the big man, thanks to his impressive stack of back issues. The middle kid was Eddie, who was a bit more affable and fun-loving, while Danny was the bratty baby brother. These were the kids I spent my days with, playing kickball, building tree shacks, and walking to the store with to buy trading cards, spaceship-shaped pencil erasers, and, of course, comic books. Back then, any new comic was something worth getting excited about, but What If number 1 was on another level entirely. Written by Roy Thomas, what if Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four, explored an idea that, as kids, we discussed countless times? Why didn't Spider-Man join a team? It always seemed like a no-brainer. He was always on the run from the law, being blamed for crimes he didn't commit. If he was on a team, he'd have alibis, witnesses, the whole bit. We all know that Webb had stubbornly stayed a solo act for many decades to come, but we didn't have to wait all that time to find out how the story might have turned out. Only instead of joining an elite league of heroes like the Avengers or a non-team like the Defenders, Spidey up and joined a family. Brought to us live from the moon by the all-seeing Watcher, our story picks up the thread first laid down in Amazing Spider-Man #1. Old Webhead decides to pursue membership in the Fantastic Four as a solution to his money problems. As the story originally goes, Spider-Man's brash and headstrong nature clashed with the Four. Let's just say he came on a little strong, leading him to tangling with the team he had moments before hoped to join. After some static, the teenaged hero was turned away, more or less cementing his loner status in the Marvel Universe for years to come. However, in this new reality, another choice is made, with the FF admitting Spidey to their previously exclusive ranks. In the first of a series of truly wonderful moments, Spider-Man reveals his identity to the Four, an act that reestablishes the honesty and integrity at the heart of these 5 fictional characters, lest fans of the mid-1970s had missed those years. After a brief period of uncertainty, the public embraces Spider-Man as the newest member of the team, and he is soon celebrated alongside his 4 cosmic-powered teammates. Even that old skinflint J. Jonah Jameson gets in on the act. The next few pages are spent exploring this new permutation of the team and the effect that the change has on all of their lives. Villains that Spidey had previously been forced to fight alone are now handled easily with the help of his fantastic teammates. Even better, the FF find their forces bolstered by the addition of the adventurous young hero, who helps them dispatch the villainous Red Ghost and his team of super apes. A new dynamic begins to emerge, one that increasingly sees Spider-Man going with the others while Susan, Invisible Girl Storm, is sidelined. However, Susan is far from forgotten. Susan is seduced into meeting Namor, Prince of Atlantis, on one of New York City's countless piers. Okay, we get it. You're a major shipping port, New York. Relax with all the docks and piers already. Namor has fallen under the spell of longtime fantastic foe, the Puppet Master. Old Pointy Ears absconds with Sue and whisks her back to Atlantis. There, he sends a hologram to taunt the team, challenging them to come and rescue Susan. It's child's play for Namor to capture the now diminished Fantastic Five. Once ensnared, the one-time hero toys with the group. He taunts them once again, revealing Susan trapped in a big old fishbowl with a giant octopus. Yowza! I thought you loved this chick, Namor. Love or not, she makes the perfect bait for Namor's final defeat of his greatest foes. We're treated to an epic battle where Johnny, Reed, and Spidey tackle Subby while Ben does a deep dive to rescue Susie. It's chock full of that Silver Age Marvel pathos, with the heroes desperately fighting against the clock and one of their most unpredictable foes. But, being a Marvel comic, things are never that simple. When the Puppet Master demands he kill Susan, Namor is shaken from his mental enslavement. With supreme effort, he shrugs off the Master Manipulator's control, leaving old Baldy to stew in his juices for another day, I guess. After that, all that's left is for the team and Namor to once again part on uneasy terms, with lessons learned by all. Only Susan decides that, After months of neglect from the four, thanks to Spider-Man's inclusion in the group, her place is actually at Namor's side, and she wants to stay in Atlantis with him. Will Susan come to her senses in time? Will Reed declare his love? Hey, I'm not going to spoil the ending for you. This book has been reprinted a number of times, most recently in the ever-affordable True Believers line of comics. If you haven't read this one yet, it's well worth tracking down. I can't tell you the profound effect that this book had on me as a young reader. The fact that the story seemed so rife with potential and then end with such a curveball. I mean, man, the concepts of sacrifice and loss really hit home. I'm not sure why it was that the events in this particular comic seem so fixed and unchangeable compared to every other book. I guess you can chalk it up to the talents of Roy Thomas. The story itself is so well considered and thought out that it reads more like a compressed novel than your average comic book. And in this, it allows Thomas to take the opportunity to really develop the story, shining light into some of the darker nooks of the Marvel Universe and showing a few of the innumerable changes that would result in such a shakeup. Jim Craig and Pablo Marquez provide the art for this issue, and it's pretty solid. One might argue that such a big event story deserved an equally big-name artist like John Romita Sr. or John Buscema to illustrate it, but hey, I reckon those guys were busy enough. Jim Craig's pencils are sharp and energetic, although the artist is forced to cram a lot of action into some rather small panels. I know this issue is already oversized, but it would have been nice to see the creative team get a few more pages to really stretch out and deliver some larger-scale visuals. That said, what is here is pretty great. The panel of Susan being hypnotized by the fish has stayed with me for decades. What If Spider-Man Joined the Fantastic Four is a great read. While it's easy to understand how such stories might seem a little gimmicky to some readers, they're missing out on some real gold here. While the What If title itself ran for decades after, it rarely, if ever, hit the peak of quality and intensity of this particular first issue. That's not to diminish anything that came after. There are some really great stories in that first volume especially, but I'm not quite sure the book was ever able to top this particular first issue, at least for me. It's just that good. All right, moving on with the alternate reality theme. Hey, it's Betty and Veronica, number 118 from October of 1965, and many of you out there will know that this is the first appearance of Betty as Super Teen. Now, this is an imaginary story in every sense of the word, as this six-pager is just a daydream Betty has one lazy afternoon. Unlike our boy Peter, whose superheroics are motivated by guilt, or the FF, who are motivated by altruism, Betty here is motivated by the desire to keep Veronica away from her man. Transforming to her mighty alter ego, Super Teen, Betty zips across town to track down her quarry. And she's just in time, as poor Archie Andrews is about to succumb to that saucy succubus Veronica Lodge's charms. Thanks to her oddly durable head, Super Teen thwarts her foe and heroically stomps her spine into a crazy straw. How unladylike! Super Teen dispatches some scary monsters and super creeps before carrying Archie high into the air and thrilling him with a few high-voltage kisses. Then, before old Arch's head can explode, Super Teen returns to Earth and her guise as mild-mannered Betty Cooper. And because our gal here has read a few comics herself, Betty indulges in that classic secret identity trope before leaving Archie to his questions. It's all a bit of fun, of course. Betty isn't a superhero. She just knows a few strong knots is all. The first Super Teen story is interesting in that the character hasn't actually manifested in the Archie universe yet. She's just an idle fantasy in the mind of one lovesick gal who's actually more than capable of snagging the object of her affection the old-fashioned way. Entrapment. The company, unwilling to let even the merest of concepts get away without beating them to death, quickly brought Super Teen back along with other powered-up versions of other Archie mainstays, and a lot of the whimsy went out. Still, this debut issue is a pleasure, and with art by the legendary Dan DeCarlo, it's a can't miss. We wrap things up with one of the most batshit crazy Lois Lane stories I have ever read, and that's saying something, folks. As noted before, the creators over at DC were not shy about playing fast and loose with old Lois, and she, perhaps more than any other character, was saddled with loads of non-continuity stories. By the mid-1970s, the trend seemed to be cooling down, but was replaced by stories of an equally fantastic nature where incredibly bizarre events occurred over the space of an 8-pager, only to be undone miraculously in the space of a few panels. This having your cake and eating it too approach may have seemed like a good idea at the time, but left characters' lives strewn with some truly laughable events. Case in point. In The Girl with the Heart of Steel from Superman Family Volume 1, number 178, Lois subjects herself to a process to imbue her with powers almost matching her boyfriend, Superman. However, because it's Lois, you know it's all going to go sideways in a spectacular fashion, and she's turned into this. No, don't look away. Gaze upon her hideous, robotic, plucked chicken countenance. I know, it hurts now, but one day, when you're tough enough to be able to review these sort of comics yourself, you'll thank old Minky. A spacecraft streaks across the sky, setting down in Smallville, birthplace of Superman. But don't get too interested, as we've got a ways to go before we get back to it. Over in Metropolis, Lois is interviewing Professor Mathers, although it's Bimmo the chimpanzee who's the real draw here. Not because of his little red shorts, mind you, but because he's actually bionic. As if chips were strong and unpredictable enough, huh? Even better, the professor is nearly, maybe almost just about to ready to start to experiment on a human subject, maybe. And guess who's chomping at the bit to be one? Well, if you said Perry White, that would have been a good guess, but no, it's just Lois. Off she goes after what looks like a fantastic smokeless ashtray, exhibiting amazing speed, strength, and the ability to run in chunky pumps. For all that, the ashtray gets away through a pothole, and Lois just kind of gives up. She reveals to Perry that she's undergone the professor's transformation, and now she, too, is bionic. It's all in the name of love, as Lois reveals Superman can't be in a relationship with someone who could be killed by, say, a mere hail of automatic gunfire. It's really the only way. And then we're treated to this bit of nightmare fuel. The Bronze Age. What were they smoking? At any rate, Lois gets a mysterious package from the wig shop, and then she and Perry hit the town in search of more mysterious sightings. They don't have to wait for long. Apparently there's just something about the Fourth Estate that's irresistible to the alien presence, and soon it's back. Lois chases it, but only manages to break off a small piece of the curious object before it again escapes. Thwarting an assassination attempt on the life of a city councilman, Lois reveals to the world her new powers. Superman is taken back a bit, but eventually decides to just roll with it. After all, having a bionic girlfriend might not be so bad. Now she can finally keep up. Oh yeah, and if part of her becomes damaged, no problem. It can all be replaced. Everything seems pretty Jake, but... That's some pretty disturbing imagery right there. With her skin off, Lois looks like one of those plastic bones from the Operation game. Even worse, she seems to be going through some kind of bionic puberty, turning the lovely Miss Lane into this. I'm not sure what Carrie Bates and Kurt Schaffenberger think bionics are, but I'm not going to be the one to try and correct them. It's just too delightfully daffy. A little bit of that Silver Age lunacy rearing its heavy head in the stuffy 70s. Lois is summarily chased out of town by her readers, proving that you can spend your entire life doing good, but the second you show up looking like an erector set in a dress, folks are going to turn on you. Lois tracks the UFO to a remote forest because your thriving metropoli are always ringed with dense woodland. Turns out the ship is empty, and for good reason. It's been sent from the future to find and retrieve Superboy. Only it overshot its mark by 20 years or so. Lois offers to help the now fully grown Superman to his enthusiastic fans, and in return the aliens turn her back into regular old Lois Lane. Okay, now I don't know about you, but I feel turning Lois into an overgrown tinker toy with bicycle horns for ears is a perfectly logical and natural, sensible progression for her character. I mean, imagine how much time that will free up for Superman alone, not having to save her at least once every issue. It's a shame, but who knows? With as desperate as DC has gotten, maybe Bionic Lois is just what this company needs to get back on top again. I'm Jason Mink. Thank you for joining me this morning. If you enjoyed this program, please consider liking this video, commenting, or subscribing to our channel. Or do all three. And hey, if it really blew your skirt up, maybe head on over to the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics swag shop and buy a mug, a mask, or a t-shirt. After all, it helps keep kids like me off the street. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next Sunday at breakfast.